Investing feels responsible, paying off debt feels responsible, and somehow when you are trying to do both, it can still feel like you are behind. When you put money toward debt, part of you thinks I should be investing, and when you put money into investing, part of you thinks why am I doing this while I still owe money? That is the annoying part. Both things can be valid, but we have to weigh our options. So maybe the better question is not should you invest while paying off debt, but what problem is your next dollar actually supposed to solve? Because that answer looks different depending on where you are. And that is what we are going to walk through today. Because your next dollar might need to stop expensive interest. It might need to give you breathing room. It might need to get an employer match, or it might need to start building long-term wealth. But it probably cannot do all of those jobs at once. So I would start with the debt itself, because all debt is not the same. A credit card charging 20-something% is not the same thing as a low interest mortgage. A payday loan is not the same thing as a student loan with a manageable payment. A car loan that barely fits into your budget is not the same thing as a car loan you can comfortably afford. So when someone says pay off all debt before investing, that might be too strict. But when someone says just invest no matter what, that might be too careless. The interest rate matters, the monthly payment matters, and honestly, your stress level matters too. If you have high interest debt, especially credit card debt, I would take that very seriously, because that debt is not just sitting there, it is working against you every month, especially if you are only making the minimum payment. It can be discouraging and quite frustrating because you're doing the responsible thing, but the balance barely moves. That is why paying off high interest debt can be so powerful. It is not as exciting as watching your money grow, but you are removing a guaranteed expense from your life and alleviating some stress. And all of that matters because investing is uncertain. The market might do well, or it might do badly. It might do nothing for a while, but the credit card interest is constant regardless of how your portfolio is performing. So if you are carrying high interest debt, I would be careful about investing extra while that debt is still growing. If one side of your life is trying to grow and the other side is getting eaten alive by interest, it will probably seem like you are going in circles with no meaningful progress. Now, before I go too far into debt payoff, there is one thing I would not skip: a small cash buffer. Because if you throw every extra dollar at debt, but you have no cash at all, one surprise bill can send you right back to the credit card. And that is where people tend to get stuck in a loop. They pay the card down, start to feel comfortable, putting one or two things on it with the mindset, I'll pay it off next paycheck. And that can create a snowball effect. It can feel like the same debt keeps coming back from the dead. So even when the math says to attack high interest debt as fast as possible, real life still needs some room. I am not saying you need a perfect 6-month emergency fund before you do anything else. For a lot of people, that would take forever. And realistically, not all of us are in a position to do that, but having some cash set aside can keep a normal problem from turning into new debt. The goal is not just to pay the debt down once. The goal is to stop needing the debt again. So if I were simplifying this, I would say make the minimum payments, build a small cash buffer, then attack the expensive debt, especially credit cards. Now, there is one thing that makes this less clean: the employer match. If your job offers a retirement match, I would not ignore that without thinking about it, because that employer match is what people call free money. However, if getting the match causes you to overdraft miss bills or put groceries on a credit card, then the match might not be your top priority. So I would treat the match like an important checkpoint. If you can get it without making your situation worse, it is usually worth it. But if the whole budget is on fire, the first job is probably getting the budget under control. Once things are stable, then you can start thinking about which debt to attack first. The math answer is usually pretty simple. Pay minimums on everything, then put extra money toward the debt with the highest interest rate. That usually saves the most money. So if you have a credit card at 24% and a loan at 7%, the math says go after the 24% debt first. That makes sense, but there is another side to this. Some people do better by paying off the smallest balance first. Not because it saves the most interest, but because it gives you a quick win. You get the sense of accomplishment and progress. That's important because motivation is a big factor when it comes to paying off debt. The best plan is the one you will actually follow. If numbers motivate you, go for the highest interest rate first. If you're overwhelmed and need momentum, starting with a smaller balance is not crazy. Just know the trade-off. You might pay a little more interest, but if it keeps you moving, it may still be better than having the perfect plan that you quit after 2 weeks. Now, what about low interest debt? This is where I think investing while paying off debt can make sense. If the debt has a low fixed rate, the payment fits your budget, you have some emergency savings, and you are not carrying credit card debt, then I do not think you automatically need to wait until every debt is gone before investing, because waiting has a cost too. Time in the market matters, compounding matters, and just building the habit of investing matters, even when the amounts are small. A mortgage, a manageable car payment, student loans at a reasonable rate, those are just not the same thing as a credit card with a 20% APR that keeps compounding when you only make the minimum payment. So just be honest about what your debt is actually doing to your life. Is it expensive? Is it growing? Is it making your budget feel impossible every month? If yes, focus there first. But if it is low interest, stable, and you can make the payment without holding your breath, investing at the same time is reasonable. So if I had to simplify it, here is a rough order that works for a lot of people. Make the minimum payments, build a small cash buffer. If your employer offers a match, try to capture it without blowing up the budget. Then go after the high interest debt. Once that is handled, build out a real emergency fund, then start putting more toward investing. After that, honestly, extra dollars can go a lot of different directions depending on where you are in life. More investing, paying down lower interest debt faster, or just giving yourself more flexibility. At the end of the day, there is no universal right answer here. It depends on your debt, your situation, and where you are in life. But hopefully, this gives you a clearer way to think about it. If you found this helpful, subscribe to Dollar with a Plan. I make new videos every week.